It was a quiet evening in Manchester, the streets bathed in the dim golden glow of the streetlights. Cristiano Ronaldo had just finished a lengthy training session with his team. His body was sore, but his mind was sharp, still focused on the upcoming matches. He had decided to leave the training ground a bit early, wanting to enjoy some peace before heading back home to spend time with his family. As he stepped out of the gym, he noticed the bustling city around him, yet the streets were relatively empty, save for a few late-night joggers and people heading home after a long workday. His car, a sleek black Range Rover, was parked a few steps away, but as he approached, he realized the traffic was unusually heavy. Maybe it'll be quicker if I just take a taxi, he thought, shrugging to himself. The idea of driving through the packed streets wasn't appealing. Besides, he'd been in the mood to relax a bit and not deal with the constant rush. He took a deep breath and dialed for a taxi, his phone vibrating slightly in his hand as the call connected. He didn't give much thought to the taxi ride, only to the few moments of silence it would offer him. He had been in Manchester long enough to understand how much his fame had changed the dynamics of his everyday life. It was hard to go anywhere without someone noticing him, recognizing his face, even if he tried to keep a low profile. But today, he just wanted a break. He pressed the end call button and stood by the sidewalk, waiting for the taxi to pull up. It didn't take long before a yellow cab turned the corner, slowing down in front of him. Ronaldo opened the door and slid into the back seat. It was a modest car, nothing fancy, but comfortable enough for what he needed. The driver, a man in his early 30s with a slightly scruffy beard, turned to greet him. "Evening, sir." "Where to?" the driver asked, his voice warm but neutral. Ronaldo smiled back and responded with his address, something simple, not wanting to draw too much attention. As the car pulled away from the curb, Ronaldo leaned back against the seat, stretching his legs and letting his body relax into the cushions. He glanced at the window, watching the city lights blur by, trying to clear his mind. It had been a stressful few days on the field, and he wanted nothing more than to unwind, even if it was just for a few moments. However, his attempt at peace was short-lived. The driver, noticing the famous face in his rearview mirror, couldn't help but feel a spark of excitement. Cristiano Ronaldo. The football legend who had dominated the world stage for years. The driver, whose name was Jack, had been a fan of Ronaldo for as long as he could remember. He had grown up watching him play for Manchester United and later Real Madrid. He had followed every step of his career, admiring not only his skill but his relentless work ethic. Jack, usually a reserved man, found himself unable to keep quiet for long. "So, Jack started, his voice tentative at first. "You're Cristiano Ronaldo, aren't you?" Ronaldo chuckled softly, the sound light and genuine. "Yes, that's me," he replied. "Not every day I get recognized in a taxi, but it happens." Jack grinned, his excitement palpable. "I thought so. Man, I've been a huge fan of yours for years. I mean, I've watched every game you've played. I can't believe I'm actually driving you right now. What's it like being at the top of the game for so long?" Ronaldo, still leaning back in the seat, gave a modest shrug. "It's a lot of work, to be honest. People think it's all glory, but behind every moment of success is hours of training, sacrifice, and discipline. It's not always easy." Jack nodded, completely fascinated. He had always been intrigued by what it took to be the best, and this was his chance to hear it directly from the source. He felt a rush of energy, eager to dive deeper into a conversation that he had only ever dreamed of having. "You know," Jack continued, "I've always wondered how you stay so focused. With all the pressure, all the media, the fans, how do you keep your head in the game? How do you block out all the distractions?" Ronaldo smiled, feeling a little more at ease now. "It's about passion. It's not just a job for me, it's my life. I love football, and that love makes it easier to push through the tough times. But it's also about having the right people around you, coaches, family, teammates. They all help you stay grounded." The conversation seemed to flow naturally after that, Jack asking questions about Ronaldo's training routine, his mental approach to the game, and how he managed to stay at the top of his game despite the passage of time. Ronaldo, always the professional, answered each question thoughtfully, yet there was a part of him that couldn't help but feel a bit uneasy. It wasn't the questions themselves, it was the tone of Jack's enthusiasm. It was almost too much. As the taxi drove through the streets of Manchester, Jack's questions began to grow more intense. Do you think you'll ever retire soon? I mean, you're getting older, right? How much longer can you keep going at this level? Ronaldo's jaw tightened slightly, but he didn't let it show. He had heard these questions before. People were always wondering when he would slow down, when he would leave the game he loved. But the truth was, he wasn't done yet. He wasn't even close to finishing. I don't think about retirement yet, Ronaldo said, his voice steady. I focus on the present. I take it day by day, and when the time comes, I'll know. But for now, I'm still focused on playing my best. Jack, seemingly unable to stop, pressed on. But, how do you stay so motivated? You've already won everything. Doesn't it get boring? What's left to achieve for someone like you? That question hit differently. Ronaldo paused for a moment, his eyes narrowing slightly as he processed Jack's words. There was a hint of annoyance creeping in now, but he didn't want to snap at the driver. Instead, he took a deep breath and looked out the window. It's not about the trophies, or the records. It's about the love for the game, Ronaldo replied, trying to keep his cool. Every time I step onto that field, I'm driven by the challenge. To be the best, to help my team, to push myself beyond my limits. That's what keeps me going. Jack sensed a change in the air, but he didn't back off. I get that. But don't you ever feel like you've done it all? Like there's nothing left to prove? Ronaldo turned to face him, his eyes locking onto the rearview mirror. There was a moment of tension, but then Ronaldo sighed, feeling a mixture of frustration and understanding. He realized Jack wasn't trying to be disrespectful, he was just excited, perhaps a bit too much. I've done a lot, sure. But I haven't done everything. The game is always evolving, and so am I, Ronaldo said, his voice now more composed. There's always something new to learn, something new to achieve. That's why I keep going. Jack nodded, sensing the shift in the conversation. He had pushed a little too hard, but the truth was, he had always been fascinated by Ronaldo's mindset. Still, the fan inside him couldn't stop. I'm sorry if I've been annoying. Jack began, but Ronaldo cut him off with a soft laugh. It's okay, Ronaldo said. You're a fan. I get it. But maybe next time, let's talk more about the game and less about my age, yeah. Jack chuckled sheepishly, the tension in the car easing. Yeah, sorry about that. You're right, though. It's all about the love for the game. As the taxi neared Ronaldo's destination, Jack's excitement began to simmer down, replaced by a sense of gratitude. He couldn't believe how calm and patient his idol had been with him. Most people would have grown irritated by now, but Ronaldo had handled it with grace. When they reached the destination, Ronaldo reached into his pocket and pulled out the fare. He handed the driver the exact amount, then took a moment to add a generous tip. Thanks for the ride, Jack. And keep enjoying the game, Ronaldo said, his voice warm and genuine. It's people like you who keep the sport alive. Jack, still in awe, shook his head. No, thank you, Cristiano. I'll never forget this. As Ronaldo stepped out of the taxi and walked toward his building, Jack sat there for a moment, staring at the rearview mirror, still processing the surreal experience. It wasn't just about meeting his idol. It was about seeing a side of Cristiano Ronaldo that most people never would, the calm, humble side of a man who had conquered the world but remained grounded. And in that moment, Jack realized that perhaps there was something even more important than being the best in the world. It was about staying true to yourself, no matter how much fame and success came your way. As the taxi pulled away from the curb, Jack still couldn't believe what had just happened. Cristiano Ronaldo, his idol, the man who had made history on the football pitch, had just been sitting in his car, talking to him like an ordinary person. The conversation had shifted, and while Jack had started to feel a little embarrassed, he also felt a sense of awe. He'd heard the rumors about how polite and grounded Ronaldo was, but to experience it firsthand was something completely different. Jack's phone buzzed in his pocket, snapping him out of his daze. It was a text from his brother, asking if he'd had any interesting fares today. Jack quickly typed back, "Just dropped off Cristiano Ronaldo. No big deal." He chuckled at the thought, but even as he sent the message, his mind was still racing. He couldn't shake off that nagging feeling that perhaps he'd said too much, asked too many questions. He sat at the traffic light for a moment, letting the engine idle, and then decided he needed to call his brother. He didn't care if it was late, it was too good to just text about. "Hello," his brother answered, his voice still groggy. "Hey. You're never gonna believe this, but I just had Cristiano Ronaldo in my cab," Jack blurted out, unable to contain his excitement. "What? No way." His brother's voice instantly woke up. "What happened? Tell me everything." Jack spent the next few minutes recounting the entire ride, reliving every moment of the conversation. He even mentioned the awkward questions he'd asked, how he felt a bit overbearing at times. "Man, I hope I didn't annoy him too much," Jack said, his tone now tinged with uncertainty. "I really don't want him to think I'm one of those obsessive fans who bombard him with questions." "Dude, if I were in your shoes, I'd be doing the same thing," his brother laughed. "It's Ronaldo. I mean, he probably gets that all the time." "Yeah, but still," Jack sighed. "I could tell he was getting a little uncomfortable. Like, I kept pushing about his age and whether he's gonna retire soon. That wasn't cool. I should have just let him talk about his game, but I just couldn't stop." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line before his brother spoke again. "You know what? I think he probably appreciated the honesty. Yeah, you went a little overboard, but he didn't get mad, did he?" "No," Jack admitted. "He actually handled it really well. I thought he'd snap at me, but he didn't. In fact, he was super chill about it. And he even left me a nice tip." Jack paused, then added, "He's just as humble as they say." His brother let out a deep laugh. "Well, that's a relief. At least he didn't throw you out of the cab." "Ha! That would have been hilarious," Jack said, smiling. "But yeah, I've been thinking about it. Maybe I should have asked him something different, something more personal. Like, how does he stay so driven? Or does he ever doubt himself? You know, real human stuff." "Yeah, that's deep," his brother responded, still laughing. "You'll get another chance to talk to him one day." Jack agreed with a quiet nod, although he didn't believe it. The chances of him running into Cristiano Ronaldo again felt slim, but for now, he was content with the experience. Later that night, after dropping off a few more passengers, Jack returned to his small flat. He was exhausted, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something more had happened in that cab ride, something that went beyond just a fan meeting his idol. He realized that despite the adoration and fame, Ronaldo was just like everyone else. He had his struggles, his doubts, and his own set of challenges. Maybe, just maybe, Jack had learned something important that night. The following morning, Jack decided to take a detour on his way to work. He stopped by a local cafe, picking up a coffee for himself and a pastry for his brother. He felt the need to talk more about his encounter with Ronaldo. The conversation had left him with a sense of unease, but also with a deeper respect for the footballer. As he sat down at the table with his brother, he realized that what had begun as an exciting, starstruck moment had shifted into something far more meaningful. "I've been thinking about last night," Jack began, sitting across from his brother. "And I think I need to apologize for being a bit too much with Ronaldo." His brother raised an eyebrow, setting down his cup of coffee. "What do you mean?" "Well, after the ride, I started feeling like maybe I was too focused on his career. I kept pushing him with questions about his age and retirement. I didn't even stop to think about the fact that he's just a guy who loves football, like me with my job." "Yeah, but it wasn't like you were grilling him. You were just a fan who was curious," his brother reassured him. "And it's not like Ronaldo didn't handle it well. I mean, come on, the guy left you a tip." "I know, but that's just it," Jack said. He didn't get upset. Instead, he just spoke calmly and with respect, like it was no big deal. "And that's what got me thinking. He's not just a footballer, He's a person who's been dealing with this kind of attention for years. If anyone knows how to handle questions like that, it's him. His brother nodded thoughtfully. So you're saying you learned something from him? Yeah, Jack replied. It's not just about respecting his career or admiring his skill. It's about recognizing the person behind all of that. Ronaldo isn't just some untouchable icon, he's a human being who works hard, who's passionate about what he does, and who stays grounded despite all the fame and pressure. His brother smiled. Sounds like you got a pretty big life lesson from a taxi ride. Jack grinned sheepishly. I guess I did. The more Jack thought about it, the more he realized that his encounter with Ronaldo had changed something inside him. It wasn't just about fan admiration or starstruck moments. It was about how he saw the world of football, and the people who played the game he loved. He saw them in a new light, people with their own dreams, struggles, and emotions, just like him. That night, Jack sat at his desk, reflecting on the events of the past 24 hours. He wasn't upset anymore, nor did he feel embarrassed. What had once seemed like an ordinary taxi ride had turned into something that reshaped his perspective on his own life. He'd had a chance to speak to one of the greatest footballers of all time, not just as a fan, but as a human being with questions, doubts, and respect. And in return, Ronaldo had treated him with kindness, patience, and a generosity that Jack would never forget. As he sat back in his chair, he smiled to himself. Maybe, just maybe, there was something more important than meeting your idols. It was about learning from them, not just their victories, but their humanity. Thank you very much, see you in the next video.